Hello! Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is the Genesee County Compassion Club Show. I'm your host, Jeremy, and it is good to be back here in the studio, coming to you live from allpointstv.com. Got John in the studio with me, of course, making it happen here at All Points TV.
Hey, how's it going?
There we go.
Yep.
So it's good to be back. I got some stuff I want to share with you guys, talking about the Genesee County Compassion Club, let you know what's been going on down there. Also going to let you know what's been happening with weed around the state and around the world. So let's get started, all right? It is a beautiful end of August. It's finally a warm day, actually. I think it's like 75 degrees out there, which, you know, if you look at the trend of August here, it's been pretty cool. So
this has actually been a very mild summer, you know, for heat and stuff.
Yeah, only one or 2 days that even approached 90 degrees this summer. So all in all, pretty mild. I know the veggies out in the club garden have been struggling along, mainly because of the cold temps, but they're getting there. I know we got some fresh zucchini, fresh tomatoes coming in, and some other goodies as well. Yeah, no, all in all, summer's wrapping up. Kids are going back to school. And the leaves are just starting to change color. If you look around, you see some of that going on. But it's a beautiful time. I've talked to a couple outdoor gardeners, cannabis gardeners, if you will. And things are just starting to get into that flowering stage. We're now getting down to about 14 hours of light. Does that sound about right, John? 14? Actually,
yeah.
It's a little less than that now, I think. So getting into that stage now where your outdoor cannabis plants should start going into their flowering. You can force flower them and just cover them up if you want to. Get them down to that 12 hours of light and darkness, help get them in a little bit sooner. But who knows, with the coolness of the summer, who knows, maybe fall will come hard and fast and winter will be here before you know it. Or maybe an Indian summer. We never know in Michigan. We never freaking know. But one thing we do know is we don't have a hurricane going on, and that is a real blessing. So if you have a minute, say a prayer for all the folks down in Houston. Absolutely terrible situation down there, and it makes me realize that, or at least remember, why I love Michigan. You know, we get some wacky weather up here, but we don't have to deal with things like hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff like that. So Michigan's still a beautiful place. All right, let's get moving on here. I want to talk about some marijuana stuff. We had a beautiful club golf outing on Monday. If you guys didn't make it out, you missed out. It was at the Copper Ridge Golf Club. Absolutely fantastic event. I want to say thanks to our sponsors out there. Brian at Fenton Hydro really hooked us up, had all kinds of fantastic prizes, a lot of which were given and donated and signed and autographed by Darren McCarty, who also attended the event. It was very cool to see him there. Most of you guys are club members. You know Darren. He's one of us. And also going to give thanks to Herbs from the Burbs. Did a fantastic job, sponsored one of our holes, and also Materan Gardens sponsored one of our holes. So thank you very much to our sponsors. Had a great event, great turnout. We raised a lot of money for the Children's Roar Foundation at Hurley Medical, and that's a beautiful thing. That's what the event's for, and we had fun doing it. So Copper Ridge, fantastic place. I'm not a golfer, but heck, I'd go back there just for their food. It's a beautiful venue. Easy course to play, especially for somebody like myself that can barely hit straight. So, you know, you don't lose too many balls, that kind of thing. It's a nice thing. Thank you to George, our board member. George did a beautiful job. It was great. Another great golf event year, and we'll be looking forward to next year's event already. It's just a wonderful event. We got a little bit of rain on Monday, but really, all in all, the weather was pretty good. It was nice and cool. A little bit overcast, so it wasn't too sunny. Nobody got sunburnt. It was just a wonderful event. So thank you, everybody who came out to the golf event again this year, and all of our sponsors, and of course, like I said, George and Abby as well. You did a fantastic job emceeing our event, and thank you for putting it on. Really appreciate it. Another event we got coming up here I want to mention is Club Late Night. This is a new thing that we're doing. We're going to experiment a little bit, and we're offering some extended hours for fun time. All right, this is not for vending. This is for fun. So we're going to have it go from, like, I believe 8 to 11 o'clock. They're going to start up next Monday, which I believe is Labor Day. And I believe we've got a live band doing karaoke. And it's going to be kind of a ad-lib sort of thing. You can go up there, request any song, maybe play it for them on YouTube if they've never heard it before. They get one chance to listen through, and then boom, you're on stage and you're doing it. So Nobody's going to be real professional at this. Nobody's going to be real good. We probably have a couple of surprises come forward, hopefully, and find out we got some real talent among our club members. But we'd encourage you to come on out. We've got some special food menu items that we're going to be putting out there. We've got some special other things going on. And mostly it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you guys didn't know, we've got a ping pong table down at the club now. Thank you very much to Mr. Steven for donating that. It's a beautiful table, and I hear you guys have been tearing it up. Got a pool table down there, and also we have our video game entertainment area and a whole bunch of other good fun stuff to do as well. So come on out next Monday night, club members. I'm talking to you 8 to 11, and it's just about good times, good food, and chilling with your fellow members. It's going to be lots of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So come on out next Monday, okay? No extra charge. Just be there, be cool, order some food. We'll be happy, okay? All right. Last week, you guys are all watching the eclipse. So, and I know everybody talks about, oh, we're going to go out and stare at the sun, but actually you were staring at the moon. So that's why I have this here. Isn't that a cool picture? It was actually taken by a medical marijuana patient, donated it to the podcast for today's show. So peace out. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's a pretty cool, groovy moon picture. But, you know, we like to get high. So yeah, eclipse last week. I thought that was pretty cool. You guys all got out there and got some blind spots in your eyes for a few minutes. Woohoo! What else we got going on here? I want to talk a little bit about Matthew Stafford. Why? Because he's, what the fuck? Matthew Stafford? I know it's not a medical marijuana thing, but this is blowing my mind. The guy's getting that much money. I mean, I sure hope it's worth it. That's what I got to say. The reason I'm actually talking about Matthew Stafford, though, is that he's a quarterback. And there's another quarterback that I like more than him, but he doesn't play anymore. It's Joe Montana. Joe Montana's getting in the cannabis biz. This is news. I think you can see this on Leafly or High Times, one of those weed websites. But I thought this was kind of cool because I've always liked Joe Montana. He's one of the best quarterbacks in history. He is now getting into the cannabis industry, albeit through investing. And he's been investing into a cannabis-specific marketing firm. So these guys go out and they do all kinds of marketing, you know, online, web, interface, all this kind of stuff. But I thought that was pretty neat. So, you know, he's getting in the biz. You know, obviously Joe Montana is a businessman in addition to being a former quarterback. And this is another adventure he's dabbling in. So good luck. That's all I got to say. That's cool stuff. All right, other stuff we've got going on. The Nevada Tax Commission. This is kind of interesting here. Now, Nevada just recently opened up their recreational marijuana market. There was a lot of different things going on about who is going to get to participate in the distribution, how are they going to collect, so on and so forth. So if you go to the High Times site, you can check this out. But this is saying basically that the Nevada regulators are going to open up the state's pot distribution system to businesses other than alcohol wholesalers, after rejecting an appeal by the liquor group, or a liquor group, that claims they have exclusive rights to transport marijuana from cultivators to retail stores. The State Tax Commission voted unanimously to uphold a previous decision by the tax department to expand the licensing beyond alcohol distributors because they have been unable to keep up with the overwhelming demand. So, little backdrop story there. Basically, obviously, originally they had the only people that could distribute and transport cannabis, the new recreational cannabis, of course, what they're talking about out in Nevada, were previously licensed alcohol distributors. Kind of a gross way to do things. I mean, why? That has no point in other than padding the rich. You know what I mean? But they broke that mold. They rejected it, and the state stepped up and said, no, we need to allow this to be more of an open market. We need to allow other people to get in on this business, and we're going to do that because the main bottom line here is that they can't even handle the business demand that is out there. Now, I think the main reason should be because no one should have a monopoly, but nevertheless, at least it came to the correct, in my opinion, correct conclusion of what to do. So they had a 5-hour hearing before the commission decided, basically, there's also a group called the Independent Alcohol Distributors of Nevada. Kevin Benson, an attorney for them, said they're having a meeting and they have not decided whether or not to file another lawsuit challenging the state's decision. So, It's important to pay attention to other states, because you can see things that happen, learn from them, and apply them to your situation here in Michigan. And in Michigan, the alcohol distributors in this state have a very strong presence. Strong presence in their industry, strong presence in the legislative bodies. This is something to keep in mind here in Michigan. When we're talking about Michigan becoming a recreational marijuana state, which will likely happen in 2018. Just a side note on that, recent signatures have been collected. Up to 200,000 signatures have already been collected for Michigan's recreational marijuana ballot proposal. So well on its way to meeting the mark for that. It's not done yet, but it's well on its way. So in 2018, when we see cannabis on the ballot, and then we see it become available on a recreational level, how is that going to happen? How is that going to impact local business, economy, so on and so forth? It is going to be determined by our state, and we need to make sure that our state has the interest of all Michiganders and not just a select group. So that's what Nevada has done, so kudos to Nevada for making that decision, and hopefully we here in Michigan can learn something from that and apply it to our situation as well.
That's kind of remarkable, because Sheldon Adelson probably has a strong grip on Nevada, doesn't he? Because of the casinos he owns.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a mogul out there. Sheldon Adelson has been a long time opponent of cannabis. He does not like cannabis. Has donated multi-millions of dollars to anti-cannabis campaigns, specifically in Florida. We talked about those on the podcast here last year, but really impacting the entire nation. People like him have been a stumbling block to the development of the cannabis industry as a medicine and also as a recreational product. So, John, that is a good point, that even with powerhouses like him in the state, influencing people of power as well, they still were able to come to the correct conclusion of opening up that market to more than just the current people that are licensed to distribute alcohol. And that same conversation has been going on here in Michigan, so it's important to extract from this what we can, and again, apply it here in Michigan to prevent any unnecessary corporate monopolies that may be developing or may take place. All right, so let's move on. That was what was up with Nevada. That was the Nevada Tax Commission. Let's talk a little bit about Michigan, since we already were anyways. Michigan has a Michigan Medical Marijuana, let's call them a Michigan Medical Marijuana Policy Development Board. Basically, this board, Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensing Board, as it's becoming to be known as MMLB, basically we're delved with the responsibility of developing and suggesting the program rules and guidelines for the new medical marijuana program in Michigan, which was just passed into law by our legislature this last year. So this is a new program. It is in addition to the current patient caregiver program that already exists, that was passed by voters back in 2008. So this is a new program, new board that was formed to govern the new program. And the second public meeting that they actually have, the first thing that they say is that they want to go ahead and step on the old program by closing all dispensaries across the state by September 15th, citing that they need to have fairness for these cannabis businesses across the state when they begin to license these new distribution centers. This is preposterous. Number one, the licensing board that we're talking about does not have the authority to make those types of decisions. They certainly can make suggestions, that is their privy. However, they do not have the authority to do that. Neither does the department that this board answers to. So this board answers to the licensing department, i.e. LARA, same place that we send in our patient and caregiver applications to, the same place that governs the current medical marijuana program. So that department, LARA, does not have the authority to shut down anybody either. They can also make suggestions, but they don't have the authority to go in and actually shut down anybody per se. So this is an outlandish comment made by one of the board members on this new Michigan Medical Licensing Board. Unfortunately, it does give us a window or a peek into their mindset, and this comment was made by Sergeant Bailey, or I should say former Sergeant Bailey. who has been a opponent of medical marijuana from the beginning, and is well documented in being antagonistic to medical marijuana patients and caregivers alike. So not a friend at all, and unfortunately was elected to the board. We've talked about that on the program already. So Sergeant Bailey is fast becoming medical marijuana's biggest public enemy. But in spite of that, there's also another gentleman on the board who is the head of the board, Rick Jones, I believe is his name, who was conveniently tied to the same lobbying firm that enacted or was able to push this set of bills through in our legislature. So although he has vehemently denied any personal interest or any family interest in the medical marijuana industry, his ties are very well clear and documented as to where he came from, so on and so forth. He also echoed some of the sentiment from Sergeant Bailey. So he did recant, though, and say they did not have enough people on the board to take a vote. The vote would have been more of a, let's say, demonstrative action versus actually being a statute or something that police are going to go out and enforce. So really, the vote would have been not necessary anyways. However, they didn't take the vote. Certainly, they had a couple hours of public comment that were all vehemently opposing this type of comment, this type of action being suggested by Sergeant Bailey. And after that, they decided, even though they hadn't even really taken into account what people were saying, they did decide not to take a vote at this current date. However, comments were made by the chair that shutting down all current dispensaries is something that just is going to have to be done in the future. So certainly not very comforting to the patients of Michigan at all. Definitely not comforting to any of the established businesses out there already in Michigan. And I believe right now Michigan has well over, or at least close to, 400 different distribution type facilities across the state for medical marijuana. We're talking about places in Detroit, Greater Detroit, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. There are places over in Kalamazoo. There's places in Muskegon. There's places in Traverse City. There's places in Flint, obviously. There's places in Lansing. So we're talking about businesses across the state being potentially impacted by this type of action. So it could be potentially catastrophic if the state decided to go in and actually proceed with this. Some of the things I'd like to point out to our viewers and also maybe to our state if they happen to see any of this program. If you were to close all of your state's dispensaries by September 15th, even if you licensed new businesses by December of this year, they still would not be up and running until maybe at the soonest May of 2018, which means that they would not have a viable product to take to market to make available to a patient until at least 6 months from after that date of opening per se in May. So you are proposing on the board to keep medicine out of people's hands who are supposed to be having it through this action. You'd be proposing to take that medication away for a period of over 12 months. Because if you count from May and you go 6 more months of how long it takes to harvest cannabis medicine, at the bare minimum, some people would tell you it takes 9 to 12 months to do this process. But I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Even if you only took 6 months to produce a product from May, you would still be well past the September date that you had previously canceled all the dispensaries. So you're talking well over a year. Absolutely preposterous idea to say to a cancer patient who's suffering, look, these businesses just aren't licensed well enough. Once we get our act together and then get them relicensed, if we so choose to license them, then they'll be a viable source for your medication in the near future. What to do in the meantime, we really can't tell you. We don't know what to tell you there. That would be the answer that the state would be giving, and that is a terrible, horrific answer to give to somebody who is in need of a medication, especially when they're used to already getting it. So I want to put to rest some of the fears, and that's why I specifically let you folks know that that board, that licensing board with Sergeant Bailey and the other fella, they do not have the authority or the power to do anything to our laws. All right, so in spite of what they may say, the only thing they're there for is to begin to draft a process for the new businesses, not the old ones. Okay. It is up to our state. It is up to our state attorney general. It is up to our state police. It is also up to our local authorities, our county prosecutors, our county police and sheriff's office, and right on down to our city and our townships, from their boards to their mayors to their supervisors to their police force, and how these businesses are felt and perceived in their own communities. So this goes right down to a very local level, and that is exactly where it should be left at, in my opinion. If towns like Ypsilanti, Lansing, Flint are happy with the places that they've already licensed, there should be no need to force them to go close these businesses and to make them regenerate themselves as something else now that the state now supposedly approves of. The medical marijuana laws in Michigan have been muddied from the beginning, and I would suggest and imply that the majority of that muddying has been done by our state authorities, by our state prosecutors, by our state attorney general, by our state police. It seems to be that they just can't let this go. It is too much of a moneymaker for their departments. It is too big of a foot in the door to fighting crime, because it's an easy one to go after. And I don't think that our officers are lazy. I think that they need new training so that they can go, pursue crimes in other manners. But the marijuana entry point really should just be, it should be dropped from their training. We're looking at a full-on legalization here in a matter of just a couple years. We're seeing numerous states across the nation that are already there. Most of our police officers, actually, when you talk to them on the job, they'll tell you that they do not care about marijuana. It is not one of their focuses. So why is our state continuing to go after this, continuing to create problems in areas that they don't previously exist until the state stepped in and decided they did? We need to have a sort of come to Jesus moment with our state legislators and some of the people that work at our state departments. They need to realize the reality of where our state is at, and for a minute take that into account, because the story that they're being sold by these corporate interests, by these Canadian companies who are coming in with tens of millions of dollars, it may sound all rosy and peachy, but it's not going to work the way you think it is. And we need to take a look at what the patient's needs are, and also what the current businesses' needs are here in Michigan as well. So that's where we're at. I know that a lot of folks were up in arms about this comment, about this board and their actions. They have stated that they want to have another public meeting very soon. They haven't given a date yet for that. They had one already scheduled for the month of October, but they alluded in their last meeting that they would need to have another meeting prior to that meeting. So it appears that the board is, continually coming into contact with more information, more feedback, and it continues to push them back into the room to make them think a little bit more, which is exactly what we need to do. I know that Lara has already gotten frustrated with the amount of phone calls they've received over this, and has clearly stated and put out a public statement saying, look, we don't have the authority to do this. This was not us. Quit bugging us about it. But I would tell you otherwise. Bug them anyways, okay? They're paid by you to work for you, and right now they're considering messing with you. So call them up and let them know how you feel, in spite of whether or not it may have an impact. You can also call your local representative or your local legislator and let them know as well that, hey, the way you are enacting your laws is not in the ideals with how they were passed. The idea with which they were passed was to create a regulated system for patients to have access to medication in a regulated manner. And we have that. So what we need to do is to look at the facts and to voice our opinions and make them known. So I would encourage you to do that. Call Lara, call your legislator, call your senator, call your representative. Let them know how you feel. But be respectful. You'll get a lot farther if you do. Okay, moving on here out of Michigan. I'm going to talk about Florida real quickly. Florida has medical marijuana. One of the big things in Florida, excuse me, that was plaguing most people in regards to medical marijuana is the fact that they couldn't find a doctor who would actually make a recommendation for marijuana. That is changing, and I'm sure it will continue to change as more doctors, more professionals warm up to this and don't feel like they're going to go to jail over it. A lot of doctors in Michigan, when this first came to Michigan back in 2009, didn't want to touch marijuana. They did not want to have anything to do with it because they literally feared for their own personal career, for their own personal credentials. and was some of them with good reason. Some of the health networks that these doctors were a part of stepped up right away and said, we will not make these recommendations. We will not approve marijuana. We will not suggest it. And if you do, you're risking your stature with our medical empire, or whatever you want to call it. Like Hurley, I think, was one of them, or Genesee, I think, actually was one of them. But, you know, that is, people are coming around now here in Michigan, you know, 8-9 years later, they're coming around. Florida, they're coming around as well. So more and more doctors are starting to step up in Florida. Florida is seeing a big increase in the amount of doctors that are willing to do these recommendations, which ultimately means that patients are going to be getting access to the medication that they need. So that's a good thing. I mean, Florida obviously has got a lot of folks down there who would qualify. Florida's had a long time opiate problem, and this is one of those things that could help offer an alternative to some of those pills. So, all right. Next thing I want to make a few minutes for is California. This is kind of interesting. California obviously has had medical marijuana since '96, just recently passed recreational marijuana, and their recreational market will be opening up as of January 1st this coming year. So, in light of that, obviously California being a humongous market and representing a huge opportunities, you're seeing big money flow into the market. And this is an interesting article. You can check it out on High Times or Leafly. But pull it up here. It's kind of interesting. It's talking about the big tech companies. And when I say big tech, I'm talking about companies that like helped invest in Facebook, Twitter. Some of these humongous investment firms are now actually pouring some of their funds into marijuana-based companies. Some for just tech, some for media, some for actual production. But we're talking about companies that have billions of dollars to work with, investing tens of millions of dollars into their new venture businesses. So it'll be interesting to see what comes from California. Obviously, what we saw come out of Colorado after they legalized marijuana just 3 years ago, I believe, has been phenomenal. Nothing short of spectacular. Over $1 billion in sales tax revenue collected for the state. And the amount of businesses that have sprung up in Colorado around the cannabis business have been nothing short of phenomenal. Colorado has seen an incredible economic boost from this. They weren't hurting to begin with per se, but this has only added to the bottom line and a significant factor, and I would expect nothing less in California as well. You know, California being one of the most populated states in the nation, and obviously being a little bit more liberal than the rest of the country, or at least being perceived as that. I think obviously it's going to be a big market out there in California. All right, moving on here. Let's see what else we got going on. I think that's about it for this week. I know a lot of folks are certainly concerned and rightly so about what's happening here in Michigan. And it is frustrating to see our people of authority, people in power, disregard our concerns, disregard our voices, when in fact they were put there to listen to us. So it is frustrating, and I can feel that from a lot of folks out there, and I feel that a lot of folks, you know, we just can't give up. You know what I mean? It's always been the rich versus the poor. That's never going to change. But, you know, we do have a beautiful thing in this country. It's called the right to free speech, and it gives you the ability to speak up when you don't like it. So do it. Do it peacefully, do it respectfully, but speak up. And if you're tired of big business always killing the little guy, well, let's talk about it. Let's bring it to the light, because when we expose things, then it's easier to keep people from hiding. And that's what we got to do. We got to continue to expose things. So that's what we do here at Flint Talk Radio, All Points TV. We expose things, bring out the truth to you. So thanks for joining me this week. All right, a little bit of truth, and I'm glad you're able to spend your time. So, John, thanks for coming in the studio with me. I definitely appreciate it. If you guys have a minute, please check out the other podcasts that are available here at allpointstv.com. And like I said, you can see some of the truth that's been exposed, which you might want to right now. It seems that Flint's got another mayor election going on.
Yeah, it's they recalling one mayor, but she's fighting to stay in, and right. She's got like God knows how many challengers. So, I mean, last count was 19, but I understand that maybe a few of them had dropped out, which is, I mean, 19 candidates in the city this size is an absurd amount. It's an absurd amount.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I would say kudos for those people getting out there, getting involved. You know, they may not be the people you want to see get involved, but they're getting involved. They care. And that's a beautiful thing. I know that quite a few townships around Genesee County and around the state are doing elections right now, and they're currently right now taking applications for mayor, supervisor, trustee. You know, these are paying positions. They're not a lot of money, but they're positions of influence and power, and it might be something that you'd be interested in. So I know recently there was an election that took place here in Michigan where they won't actually, it hasn't taken place yet, I take that back, but because of the application deadlines, so on and so forth, the town literally has no one on the ballot for their mayor. Their town's gonna, they will receive their mayor through write-ins, old-fashioned style. So, and think about that. You know, there's definitely a lack of participation from our citizens in this country when it comes to dealing with our local government and also our state government as well. But maybe there's an opportunity for you. Look at Eric Gunnels. He did it too. You know what I mean? So, all right, I'll get off the soapbox. Thanks for joining me this week, guys. I really appreciate it. Get out there and enjoy the rest of these warm days. You don't have very many left. And get out there and enjoy the Genesee County Compassion Club. Stop by, grab some food, and have a good time. All right? Have a great week. See you next week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show.